It is 3:14 a.m. on a Tuesday, and I am sitting on the edge of my bed staring at a screen that tells me I have exactly $12.46 left in my checking account. My feet are still throbbing from a 12-hour shift at the Amazon warehouse, packing boxes filled with things I will never be able to afford for people I will never meet. I am exhausted. Not just the kind of tired that a good night's sleep can fix, but the kind of tired that settles deep into your bones when you realize you are working 60 hours a week just to fall further behind. My credit card balance is sitting at a suffocating $15,422, a number that keeps me awake every single night, watching the digital clock on my phone tick away the remaining minutes of my youth. And yet, just 3 hours ago, I did something so incredibly stupid that I can still taste the bitter, dry dust of regret in the back of my throat. I stood in the freezing New York snow for 45 minutes, shivering in a cheap jacket that does not keep the wind out, just to hand a barista $25 for a single pastry and a lukewarm lavender latte. When the card reader beeped and flashed that horrifying word declined in front of 50 people who were all staring at the back of my head, my heart did not just skip a beat, it sank to the floor. I had to awkwardly open my banking app with trembling, half-frozen fingers, transfer the absolute last of my emergency grocery money from my savings account, and swipe again just to save face. I walked out into the cold, sat on a bench, took a bite of that dry, overhyped croissant, and realized it tasted exactly like cardboard. I did not buy food because I was hungry. I bought an illusion of wealth because I was desperate to feel like I belonged to a world that was actively pricing me out of existence. Let us be completely honest with each other for a second, because nobody else is going to tell you this. We are drowning. We are the generation that did everything right. We went to school, we took on the student loans, we took the soul-crushing entry-level jobs, and now we're watching the cost of basic survival skyrocket while our bank accounts stay completely flat. Every single corner of our lives has been turned into a psychological trap designed to extract the few pennies we have left. You see it every day on your feed. The perfect aesthetic cafes, the limited edition hoodies, the sleek stainless steel water bottles that everyone suddenly needs to own to be considered human. We tell ourselves we are too smart to be brainwashed. We know what marketing is. We think we are in control. But your brain is a biological machine that was designed hundreds of thousands of years ago for a completely different world. Deep inside your skull, you still have the mind of a caveman whose primary goal is survival. In the ancient world, separation from the tribe meant certain death. If you saw the entire tribe running toward a specific berry bush or lining up outside a cave, your brain did not stop to run a cost-benefit analysis. It did not calculate the return on investment. It screamed at you to run, to join them, to get your share before it was all gone, because being left behind meant you died alone in the dark. The corporations know this. The billionaires who design these algorithms and storefronts understand your ancient survival-driven psychology better than you do, and they have weaponized it against your wallet. They take that deep, primal fear of being left out, of being disconnected from the tribe, and they call it social proof. They call it fear of missing out. They create artificial scarcity because they know that if something is easy to get, your brain automatically categorizes it as cheap, worthless, and abundant. But if they put up a barrier, if they make you pay with the most valuable asset you have, which is your time, your brain completely miscalculates reality. The moment you step into a line that stretches down the block, a dangerous psychological trap snaps shut around your ankles. It's called the sunk cost fallacy. 10 minutes go by and your toes start to go numb. You think about leaving, but then you look back and see 10 more people have lined up behind you. Your brain whispers to you that if you leave now, those first 10 minutes were a total waste, so you stay. 20 minutes, 30 minutes. By the time you finally reach the front of that line, you are no longer just buying a cup of coffee or a piece of merchandise. You are buying a justification for your own suffering. You are protecting your ego. You tell yourself that this object must be incredible. It must be life-changing, because if it isn't, it means you're just an idiot who stood in the freezing cold for 3/4 of an hour for no reason. You pay the inflated price not because the product is worth it, but because you need to prove to yourself that your time has value. But here's the dark, sickening truth that they will never admit to you in a marketing textbook or a flashy online business course. That long line you stood in wasn't caused by a sudden surge of organic popularity. It was meticulously engineered to slow you down. It's a technique called artificial bottlenecking, and it's one of the most manipulative pieces of psychological theater ever created by modern capitalism. The cafe I went to had plenty of empty tables inside. They had the staff, they had the space, they had the capacity to serve everyone within 5 minutes, but they deliberately placed the cash register right next to the massive floor-to-ceiling glass window facing the busiest street in the neighborhood. They instructed the baristas to move with an agonizing, casual slowness, to engage in long, drawn-out conversations with every single customer about their weekend plans. They created a visual choke point at the front door on purpose. Why? Because an empty cafe looks dead, and a dead business requires expensive advertising to attract customers. But a crowd of young, well-dressed people standing on the sidewalk under the neon lights is completely free billboard space. They didn't see me as a valued customer who deserved quick, efficient service. They used my shivering, exhausted body as a living, breathing advertisement to lure in the next victim walking down the street. They forced me to pay them $25 for the privilege of being used as a prop in their marketing campaign. When I sat on that park bench, looking at that dry croissant, the anger that washed over me was not just directed at the cafe. It was a deep, burning rage at the entire system. I thought about the internet gurus, the self-help podcasters, the wealthy financial influencers who look down from their high towers and tell us stuff like, don't be the person standing in the line, be the person who creates the line. They say it with so much confidence, as if it's the easiest thing in the world. They tell a 22-year-old kid who is currently working 2 jobs just to afford a shared apartment with 3 roommates that the solution to their financial misery is to just go out and start a high-ticket luxury brand or open a boutique storefront. It's a completely empty, privileged lie. It's an inspirational fairy tale that ignores the brutal reality of our lives. Where is the capital supposed to come from? How am I supposed to secure a commercial lease in New York or Los Angeles when my credit score is trashed from paying for groceries with a Visa card? How can I manufacture an exclusive high-end product when I'm choosing between buying fresh vegetables or paying my minimum monthly student loan payment? That advice is not designed to help us. It's designed to make us feel guilty for being poor, as if our financial struggle is simply a failure of imagination or a lack of hustle. I sat there in the silence, watching the snow fall on the pavement, and I realized that the only way to win a game that has been completely rigged against you is simply to refuse to play it. You cannot beat the multi-billion-dollar corporations at their game using their rules. They have more data, more psychological research, and more money than you will ever have. But you have one superpower that they are absolutely terrified of. You have the power to turn around and walk away. I looked at that long line of people still waiting outside the cafe, holding their phones up, desperate to capture a 5-second clip for an app that doesn't care about them, and I felt a profound sense of clarity. I realized that my desire to buy these things was never about the items themselves. It was an escape mechanism. When your day-to-day life feels like an endless cycle of stress, labor, and anxiety, buying a small piece of a luxury lifestyle feels like a temporary release valve. It lets you pretend, even just for 20 minutes, that you're doing okay. It lets you signal to the rest of the world that you are not drowning. But the moment the transaction is over, the illusion vanishes, and you're left even weaker and more vulnerable than you were before. That morning was the turning point for me. I went back to my tiny room, sat down at my desk, and I made a pact with myself. I decided to weaponize their own rules against them. I started with a radical, uncompromising rule that I call the anti-FOMO protocol. I looked at my life and identified every single trigger that made my ancient caveman brain want to run with the herd. I unfollowed every single influencer whose content was just a disguised commercial for a consumerist lifestyle. I deleted the food trend apps that gave me a dopamine hit every time a new spot opened up. And I made a commitment to a new financial ritual. The very next time I found myself walking down the street and felt that familiar, urgent pull to join a crowd, whether it was for a limited edition sneaker release, a trending dessert, or even a massive online sale at a major retailer, I stopped dead in my tracks. I took a deep breath. I forced my rational mind to take the wheel.